Rescuers are digging through dirt and debris in the search of survivors for one of Brazil's deadliest mining disasters. The collapse of a dam filled with mining waste is the second accident in 3 years involving Vale, the world's largest iron ore producer. The government's promising to punish those responsible, but as Paolo Montecillo reports, they may share some of the blame.
Residents of the southeastern Brazilian town of Brumadinho reported hearing a noise, similar to the sound of heavy rain, but much louder. It was a warning that came too late for many.
When I came down, I saw that there was a mountain of trees, water crashing down, trees toppling over. It was then that I saw it was the dam.
When the accident took place, no alert sounded, due partially to the negligence of the company involved. I think the government should have exercised stricter oversight.
Brazil's largest mining firm, Vale, owns the dam that collapsed, and it's the company's second major accident in 3 years. In late 2015, a dam operated by Vale and Anglo-Australian mining firm BHP Billiton also burst, killing 19 people and wiping a town off the map. Authorities have moved to hold Vale to account. The Environmental Protection Agency has ordered Vale to pay a fine of $66 million for the latest incident. Courts have frozen $3 billion of the firm's assets to pay for the damage caused by the deadly spill. And the state of Minas Gerais, where the disaster took place, is also preparing to issue hefty fines against the company. New President Jair Bolsonaro has promised to relax mining regulations to create jobs and boost the economy. But experts say the latest disaster should give him pause.
What we've seen is a tendency for companies to cut security and maintenance budgets when commodity prices fall. We'll have to look closely at the possibility that Vale diminished its control and monitoring of these dams, even after the 2015 incident.
Minas Gerais gets its name from the mining industry. While it's the state's biggest source of income, it could also remain the source of plenty of its grief unless reforms are put in place. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Well, let's dig a little deeper now with Remi Piet, a Senior Director at America's Market Intelligence. He joins us live now from Miami. Welcome back to the program, Remi. You've written extensively about the risks of mining in Latin America. So how could a disaster like this, the same disaster in fact, happened so soon after the 2015 Samarco event? Is it just bad luck, or could this have been prevented?
I mean, it's never only bad luck, and obviously risk in mining operation, extractive sectors is always a component that should be analyzed. In the case of Vale, specifically in Minas Gerais, as you were saying, it's the second time in 3 years that such a catastrophe happens. And this catastrophe is actually be of larger extent than the one of Samarco Dam in 2015, because we're talking about several hundreds of deaths in that specific community. What's happening here is that, again, it's not a coincidence probably that happens to the same company, Vale. We would have to wait for the conclusion of the investigation, but it's possible that a series of assessment on the quality of those dams must have been failed, and there might have been some inside information that should be dug and brought to the attention of the investigators to understand how is it even possible that this happens against for Vale. The rural mining community was still in shock after the 2015 events, and there has been a strong limitation on the rise of investment in the mining sectors, a sector that actually can be holding promises for the long-term development of remote areas far away from cities. So if sustainable mining is done right, it's possible to do it. But if other companies, such as in that case Vale, do not abide to a series of regulation, then we actually are facing the damning consequences of such catastrophe, yes.
We know Brazil now has a very business-friendly president in power. What role does the Brazilian government play in all this? Do they need to make changes to the laws that govern mining in the country?
Brazil is a very specific country in the sense that the decisions in terms of regulations for mining do not only come from the federal government, in that case Bolsonaro, but also from the state entities. And Minas Gerais is a state which has a very strong history of mining. There are some very professional companies working in the mining sectors in Minas Gerais. The fact that you had a an arrival of a new president, Jair Bolsonaro, which is much more business friendly. It was supposed to be bringing much more impetus to the rise of more investment in the mining sector, and potentially opening some jurisdiction and some territories that were not open to mining for at the moment. But when you're looking at environmental regulations, when you're looking at the capacity of mining companies to operate, sustainably mining operation, then it also depends much more on the state structure than in that case the province of Minas Gerais than it is from the federal government. Now, obviously, if you look at the long-term repercussion of this, you might have a more limited impact of the capacity of Bolsonaro to liberalize the sector, and that might be also a stronger, focus for mining companies to operate very strongly and professionally in the mining sector. There's very good companies, Anglo Ashanti, Anglo American, that actually have proven in Brazil that they were able to sustainably develop strong mining operations for the well-being of communities also and the development of the regions. Others, unfortunately, probably do not follow the same rules and regulations.
Okay, and we've already seen authorities impose a $66 million fine against Vale for this latest disaster. How else do you expect Vale to be punished?
Well, I mean, we're still looking at the repercussion of the event like 3 years ago, in the sense that you had, after the San Marco Dam burst, the idea of trying to calculate the amount of money that was to be provided to the fishing industries, to other communities that were impacted and sometimes indirectly impacted by the catastrophe 3 years ago. In that case, we're going to see, and with that story that's going to develop over the next several years, the extent of the damages and trying to see how much, not only in terms of the bursting of the dam, but also in terms of chemical, for example, or the limitation of economic development for surrounding communities, has to be calculated, and that's not going to happen anytime soon. However, I can't stress enough that if you have sound community management and sound regulation that is actually being implementing on mining sites, then you are able to have the mining industry as a key component for the development of communities.
Okay, so the onus on more than one party in this case. Remi Piet, always a pleasure. Thank you.